welcome back. We've missed you.
Yeah, we skipped a little weekend there, but we're back.
We are.
In action, in sweaters, because it's finally cold.
It's cold outside. We have Mallory's kids in my house, and so if you hear not just Duke barking in the background, you'll hear Juliet singing or chewing out.
Yeah, they start fighting. Listen, I apologize in advance. I made a lot of bribes to get through this 45 minutes without incident. We'll see if it happens.
But, yeah, all good.
Yeah, it's part of it, right?
Yeah,
right.
Juliet's gonna be here. She's gonna pop in, have some excuse. She wants to be on camera so bad.
She is obsessed with YouTube, and she can't wait to tell her people that her mom really does have a YouTube channel, because her friends lie and say that they do, but she knows that they don't. So she just wants to be on YouTube very badly.
That is so funny.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, but Juliet is like your clone.
You think?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't see it at all.
What do you mean?
Like, personality wise, I feel like I'm raising myself.
Yeah.
But like the way that we look, I don't think she looks like me at all.
No, she definitely looks like you.
You think?
Yeah. Oh. Maybe it's more of a personality. Y'all's personalities are exactly the same.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
I feel like I'm raising myself too.
It's hard.
Yeah. I'm like, shit. When you like fussing at your kid for doing something that you do.
Well, and I thought I was going to have to really pull back on not projecting my perfectionism onto my kids. And I definitely, with Noah, try hard not to do that and let him be his own person. And he's totally cool with that. Not realizing that it wouldn't be a worry for Juliet, because she does it on her own.
Like, it's just her normal personality.
She's got it.
Right.
Yeah. So
I know. And I think about, like, I don't know what would be easier, to parent someone that's like you or parent someone that's not like you, because
it's equally challenging. I can
and you
say
have
that
two
with
of them,
full clarity.
and you do have one that's like you and one that's polar opposite.
Yeah.
Augustine is like me. We have our differences, but for the most part, our personalities are pretty similar, especially when we come to like the perfectionism or the independence, the defiance, hard-headedness. Like, that's me. But I try to think of, like, I think it might be harder for me to parent a child that's not like that, because I don't even have any capacity to understand it.
Well, it's hard too, because I was always so self-motivated and driven. My parents didn't have to push me to do anything. Like, that was all in me. I wanted, to make good grades, and I wanted to do the best, and that was all me. That was not my parents. And so with Noah, I had to very intentionally let that go. Like, I'm not gonna push all of that stress and that I put myself through onto him, and I'm just gonna let him be his own person. And so he doesn't always make perfect grades, and at first that was a big struggle for me, because, and I'm speaking for myself here, but it's hard to remove yourself as a parent, or whether or not you're doing a good job as a parent with what your children can or cannot do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I tried not to tie my identity as a mom into how well they're doing in school. With a kid like Juliet, it's really easy to, because I can hear them talking.
I know, it's okay.
With a kid like Juliet, it's really easy, because she's just like me, and she's very self-driven, and she wants no conduct marks ever. And
you can beat it into her, and it doesn't affect her like as much as it would to Noah.
Well, I don't even have to do anything.
Yeah.
It's there. Like, that's just in her to want to be really good at things. And school wise. And I remember even in preschool, I guess because Noah was more of the learning curve because he was first, and he had some challenges. So he was diagnosed, or he started doing speech therapy, and then his speech therapist recommended that we go to an occupational therapist for an evaluation. So he ended up being diagnosed with sensory processing disorder, which was all very scary.
Especially as a first time mom.
Gosh,
too.
Yeah.
You don't know.
I have no idea what any of that was. All these therapies, and is he going to be okay?
Yeah.
And
like what's our life going to look like?
Right. Long term. I didn't know anything. And so I kind of got a crash course really quick of valedictorian, and like, I'm not worried about all that. I just want to make sure he can do the basics.
Go on to the next.
Yeah. So what were we talking about?
Well, talking about the differences in our kids, because and like parenting them different ways. But my question to you was, is Noah and Daniel similar?
Extremely similar.
Yeah, and I think that's like kind of the beauty of marriage, and also the importance of really learning your spouse and like what and how things triggered them and what they're like, especially if your spouse is someone you're raising small kids with, because in order, like, you have to figure that out sometimes. And a lot of times if your kid is different than you, they're similar to your spouse's personality.
Yeah, and he's like a clone of Daniel. It's kind of scary.
But then sometimes, because I mean, it is a lot easier. Like, I think everybody would agree that it's a lot easier to love your kid than it is to love your spouse.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just...
no question.
It is. It's like just a natural thing for us to love. And so I think for you, too, is like you probably learned how to love and accept Daniel more through Noah.
For sure. And a lot of things about Daniel made so much more sense. Even through the sensory processing diagnosis. I remember when we went to the occupational therapist, I had to fill out so much paperwork, and I swear it's like the same questions asked in a different way over and over. And at the therapist, they had broken up the package. It was very clearly broken up into like hearing versus like oral versus touch. And there was an entire section and I took a picture of it and I sent it to Daniel and I said, like, this is you, right? Like,
you have a problem.
Whole section applies to you. And you probably as a child could have benefited from some occupational therapy. But back then,
no, it wasn't as...
You get on your Ritalin and you sit in your desk. They didn't have all of those types of things. So that was funny and interesting all at the same time. And it is funny that you say that because it's so true. I feel like I'm still learning about Daniel through raising Noah.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that. And I think too, that's also why it's important for both parents to be actively present in their children's lives, because even just with Zach being a part of Augustin's life as a man, they have different perspectives on like how to handle certain situations or how to talk to, like, there are so many times that like I am lashing out at Augustin or I'm saying something to him and Zach takes me to like the side and says, Regan, I think you need to be more gentle. You are like, there's something here, and just kind of like has a different perspective that a lot of times is true. And that's like, especially with personalities of like, I'm sure Daniel can come in and be and like have, or even not even with you, but with Noah and meet them a little bit more where they are.
Right.
For
sure. Cause I know exactly with Juliet, of course, when she's struggling and, or she's second grade, she's stressing out about completing all of her tech work for the week and making an A on her test. Queen. I know. but I know what that's like too,
What it feels like.
Yeah.
But also too, like, you can you can hand down the tools that you've learned along the years to her a lot younger age.
Right.
For as close as Augusta and I are, like as similar as we are, and we have and it's hard to tell right now because I'm a girl and he's a guy, so I think that's a little kink in this. It's not so one for one like y'all are, but Augustin and I both have the defiant, my way or the highway, independence, I can do it, let me do it, watch me do it, leave me alone personality. But I am more of a go-getter than Augustin is. But as I'm like processing it out, like just now, I'm kind of like thinking that maybe, and I'm hoping it's a guy thing versus a girl thing and an age thing. Like, because perfect example, I got recruited into coaching basketball.
Me too.
7-year-old basketball.
Unfortunately.
And I played sports all of my life, and it was something that shaped me and I loved. Like, that was my hobby. I played basketball, I played softball. With Augustin, even as a like young age, like when we played t-ball, like I remember that was physically painful for me to watch because he wasn't giving his best effort, like, and he wasn't doing things right, or he didn't care. Like, all he was there for was the social aspect, and I'm like, bruh, like, you gotta care. And so with basketball, this is our first year, and he still has that thread of just like indifference. And I'm like, what do you mean indifferent? But we're here, like, you need to drill, practice this, because he has so much potential, and he's good at that kind of stuff, but he does not give two shits about it. What?
A lot of that is age, though.
And Zach tells me, Regan, he just may be indifferent about sports. I'm like, that's not acceptable.
Sorry, but you're playing.
But you don't understand. Like, I'm living for this.
See, and that is something that I guess through my experience, I've learned to let go of. That's what I was saying earlier, and I lost my train of thought. So with Noah, we went through the experience of the therapies and kind of like panic mode of, oh my gosh, is everything okay? So with Juliet, my expectations were not so high because we had just gone through that. And I was almost like, I don't even care. I just want happy, healthy, normal, just
like you had more of a reality check on it. Yeah.
And then she was a little bit of a terror at home as an infant, a toddler, like just always crying, always complaining, very ahead of where she should be mentally for her age, but still just very dramatic. And so I remember when she started in pre-K, and we switched. She went to 2 little preschools because of COVID, sort of messed us all up. But anyway, but both times at the school, I remember the teacher saying, she's my star student. And I was like, what? Like, are you sure you're meaning my kid? Because I...
Like, at home, she's a nightmare.
Have no control over her.
Right.
And she's like, oh no, if I could have a classroom full of Juliets, it would just make my life so easy. She's my helper. She comforts the other kids when they're melting down. I'm like, is this a joke?
Yeah.
I mean, are you kidding me right now? And then at the second preschool, so it was like the pre-K4 program, they did testing. And I remember the director of the preschool called me, and she's like, Mallory, she is a genius. She's so smart. She scored so well on her test. She got all of the questions right, and she's going to be our pre-K valedictorian. And I'm like, what?
Twilight. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Me either. Okay, A. And B, zero expectation for that, just based on how she acted at home. And now I've learned she is literally like Jekyll and Hyde. At school, she's perfect. Like, she would never clip down conduct mark at school.
But at home,
she stays punished and, sassy. And so it's a challenge.
Yeah. We are, right now, I have a lot of theories about it, but Augustine naturally, so he was firstborn, obviously. Maybe that's not obvious to us. And at 2 years old, him and I moved back to Lafayette. And
he was 2?
He was not even 2 yet. He was about 18 months. We had his second birthday in this house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because we did the bugs theme. Anyway, we had just gotten in the house, though. No, because I bought my house in August and his birthday's in October. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, he was like 18 months when I moved home. Jonah had stayed in Austin to finish out school. And so there was almost a year that I was a single parent. Jonah would come home on the weekends and take him and stuff like that. But I was a single parent for the most part. And by the nature, Augustine had to learn. I didn't even take his crib. Like, he went to toddler bed. He's always been an adaptable kid. Like, he always likes to go. He's social. He's not one of those that if he misses a nap, he melts down. Like, he's always been a go-getter. But by that dynamic, he had to learn how to do things for himself at an early age. And sometimes I have, like, mom guilt about that because I want him to be a kid. And so, anyway, I'll go into that in a minute. But I remember at a young age, he had to know how to put his clothes on. He had to get himself dressed in the morning because I had to also, and we had to leave, and he had to build that independence. And honestly, I expected that of him because he could, like, he was capable,
right? And
got to the point where, like, he was doing things at 3 years old that some of our 5-year-old friends couldn't do, like, couldn't dress themselves or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it was mostly because I knew he was capable of doing it, but then I also felt like guilt that he didn't get to be a child,
Well, and I know exactly what you mean, but we did Montessori for Noah for preschool. The only reason Juliet didn't go there was because it closed by the time she got to the age. But Montessori pushes independence. And so a lot of the activities that they do are things that teach them, like, very basic life skills. Like, I remember there was one where they had a sponge and some shaving cream and, like, a stick or a paintbrush, and they would paint the shaving cream on the sponge. And if you think about, one of the movements that you do that is to put, let's say, peanut butter or something on bread. So everything that they did was geared towards teaching the kids how to independently do things on their own. And she always said, the main lady at the school would say, let them do as much as they are able to do in their capacity. So she said, can you expect them to go in the kitchen and fix a bowl of cereal right now? Probably not. But you can set a tray and you can put the box of cereal and you can put the milk in a smaller container that they can still pour, and you can put the bowl, and they can start by at least doing that. Will they make a mess? Probably, but they're learning how to do things. And that was a very light bulb moment for me where I was like, wow, that is, there is really some empowerment that comes with independence. It is very empowerment.
It is very empowering. And I love one of my favorite things about Augustine is his independence, mm-hmm. and his ability just to, like, do things by himself. And I think it's a good thing in essence of what we were just talking about. Like, I don't think was a bad thing that he could get himself dressed for school for pre-K, know? But what it did, and what we had to I had to come to terms with is that I slowly started expecting him to be able to do things that was way out of his ability.
Yeah.
So especially when it came with his physical abilities, didn't always match and still don't always match his mental ability, his maturity. And so at times I would forget that he was only 3, or even sometimes I forget he's only 7, and I'm treating him as if he was 10 or 12.
Yeah.
And I have to check myself and like realize that he is still a child, very much of a child. So over the last week, Augustin has been throwing the worst tantrums when it comes to bedtime. Augustin has never been a tantrum thrower. He also has always been, since he was 4 weeks old, a pretty good sleeper. I don't even know where it came from. I don't even think something happened. But when we are going to bed, and he only does it at my house, he doesn't do it at Jonah's house. And I have theories why.
I was going to say.
He has been throwing the worst temper tantrums when it goes to bed. When I'm telling you, like snot, bloody murder, crying, like just, don't do this to me, mama. You don't even like me. Like, just like irrational, like, I'm not staying. I'm like, when I tell him, I'm like, Augustin, you're staying in the bed. Are you going to lose your TV privileges all day tomorrow? After like the 3rd or 4th time. And he was like, I'm not staying in this. And like, just like uncontrollable. Like to the point where unless I would physically put physical power over him, which I don't really believe in at this age, at 2-year-old age is different than now. I literally cannot control him. And it got so bad the other night that he was like shaking, like so angry, but like crying snot. Me and Zach were just like staring at him, and he's like shaking in his bed. He's like, don't do this to me. You don't even like me. Why don't you like me? You don't love me. And obviously that's all just irrational. But as a mama, that like,
oh, that hurts.
It finally got to the point where he came out of his bedroom and he's like, the snot's dripping, and I'm just letting him, he's like, we're like face to face at this point, and he says, and like he's yelling at me, and I let him stop, and then I say, you look ridiculous right now. And he does, you look ridiculous. And me and Zach just busted out laughing, like just complete irrational tantrum. And every single night. So of course the next morning it's like a different child, you know. It's like he's perfectly fine, and I on the way to school I'm like, Augustin, you do know that I will always love, and he's aware of it, right? And all this stuff. And so that's where like Zach comes in. He's like, just let him sleep in our bed. And I'm like, no, this is the problem. But he doesn't get to sleep in our bed at all. It's not even a thing. I don't know where. So my theory is, 1, he's a defiant shithead. Like he will die on his sword. What does that remind you of?
Ding, 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 ding,
so
ding.
You're like, I had this, I was looking at him. He sleeps in a bunk bed. So I was looking up at him, and I'm in the door, and he's like, I'm going to get out of the bed, Mom. I will get down from this bed. And he's like telling me what he's about to do. And I'm saying, no, you're not. And then he says, give me one good reason. I'm like, because I'm the mama. But that's not an acceptable answer for him, because his brain just doesn't accept that as truth. That's how I am. And that's sometimes how I treat him like that. So he's learning it from somewhere. Like he's learning that behavior from me, and I'm here trying to discipline the same behavior that I do even to others. How many times I look at Zach and I'm like, I'm standing my ground. Give me one good reason, you know? And like, that's what we do. Now, he's a child, right? And there is that boundary where you have to draw. You're not an adult. Just like I tell him about cussing. I'm not going to not cuss around you. You just have to learn that you're 7 and I'm 30. That's the simple truth. Yeah. You know, there's certain things adults get to do
Right.
that kids can't do. And this is one of them, But, his life, and I've probably said this before, his life is about to change dramatically. Mm-hmm. He has always been the only child. He also has always only been the only grandchild on my side of the family. Mm-hmm. My brother's getting married. His dad is about to have twins.
Augustine's dad
is about to have twins at the end of November, beginning of December. 2 babies. And then Zach and I are getting married, and everything's just, and I think everybody has been, including myself, has been talking to him about, Augustine, your life's about to change, and doing it in a way that they're trying to prepare him for it. Mm-hmm. But I think in his mind, he can't comprehend it. He just knows something's going to happen. Mm-hmm. The other day, I don't know how we got on the subject, but we were in the car, and I asked him, Augustine, would you want mom to have a baby? Like, would you, because he always was about babies. He couldn't wait to have a baby brother or baby sister, like begged me to have babies when it would not have been appropriate to. And we were talking about something, and I asked him that, and he said, I don't know. Let's see how these other 2 go. And I think because Jonah and Lauren are like prepping him for it, they're talking to him about the reality that's about to happen, which is, it's fair. Like, he needs to know,
right.
And be not caught off guard completely.
Right.
But so I think these tantrums are coming from a lack of control everywhere else in his life. Mm-hmm. And that's like the only thing that he feels like he can control. Mm-hmm. And I even asked Jonah, I was like, is he doing it at y'all's house? And he was like, no, not really. Just, it was useless asking Jonah that question. But I think at our house, he has this level of comfort that he doesn't, and I'm not with nothing about Jonah and Lauren. There's just a mama aspect of it.
1,000, and I think that's
then a daddy
Juliet
aspect. It just is
too. Yeah, they save it up.
Yeah,
to get around you because that's where they feel
thing.
Most comfortable, and then they unleash the beast.
Yeah, and so that has just been so much. Like, we dread the nighttime. But what we haven't seen him in a few days, and I was talking to my mom about it this weekend. I came to terms, and this, I'll finish the loop here. I had a reason for this. I was talking about, since he was younger, I just expected him to perform at a higher level, and I forget sometimes of his age. Mm-hmm. And Zach was talking to him. He's like, Regan, he's 7 years old. He will be afraid of the dark. You might think it's just an excuse, but he might just be afraid to go to bed by himself.
Yeah.
And I am not going to waste my evening laying in bed with you for 20 minutes. That's never something I had to do. And that's not something like you are capable of doing it. You're going to listen. And it's more of, I'm not giving in to you. Like,
so you're set being this boundary right back to him.
And my heart kind of started softening over the weekend when thinking about it. One is because I think the Lord brought me back to a time when I was older too. I was deathly afraid of sleeping by myself, especially in the dark. Deathly afraid. I have a little St. Michael statue that's about this big. It's still by my nightstand. I would not be able to go sleep unless I was held it in my hand. I was deathly afraid of going to sleep by myself for a lot of years. And my mama even, she was like, we were sitting down yesterday or whenever it was. She's like, I didn't know that. I mean, I wasn't the type of kid that, like, even when I was an infant, nobody can rock me to sleep or anything. So my parents never did that. I'm not saying that would have helped. I'm just saying the Lord brought me back to the time where I was like Augustine, and maybe it could have been solved if something was done, whether it be someone laying with me or whatever. And then also think about so many parents just simply lay with their child until they fall asleep at that age. Mm-hmm. And it's not the end of the world. And I think about times in the future whenever they're going to be grown and don't even want anything to do with me. And I wish I would have taken that time. Enjoy the 7-year-old phase where they want you there and want to snuggle and stuff. And so But then in my heart, I'm battling with like no, I've been preaching for a week now. Like, you're going to listen to me. You're going to do all these things. But now, like, maybe I am. Maybe he just needs me. And like, that's just, I have to be selfless. I have to give up my 30 minutes of free me time to be there for what he needs of me, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think because I'm going through the same thing with Juliet right now, the only difference is she does sleep in our bed. So good luck getting her out.
Yeah,
I guess it just, again, comes with her being the second. I see some of these like cyclical things, and Noah went through this exact same phase at this exact same age where all of a sudden he was scared of everything. Scared of the dark, scared to go in a room by himself, scared to go to the bathroom by himself. And I really think it's an age phase.
Yeah, it's like they know enough to be scared, but they don't know enough to rationalize that their fears are irrational.
Right. So what I've been doing, what I do when, and I'm trying to teach them to do is, and it helps because at Holy Cross after Mass, we pray the St. Michael prayer every Mass. So I talked to him about St. Michael. I'm like, oh, he's an archangel. He has like a sword and he fights. And so when you're scared, when you have a bad dream, like pray to St. Michael, pray the St. Michael prayer. He will come and protect you with his shield. And it's like a very visual, little kid, knight in shining armor situation, you know?
Yeah.
So I always try to turn it back to that when I can.
I know. I always tell Augustine, say your prayers, talk to Jesus about it. And he's like, no, he's not even here.
But I do think it is hard because, especially when you work, you don't get a lot of free time. So our evenings to split between spending time with our kids, making sure we're getting dinner, housework done, making sure the homework's done, bath time, all before they have to go to bed, and then still finding time for yourself. It's like
yourself and your spouse.
Close to impossible to do all of those things.
And go to bed at a decent time.
Right. So I totally understand that turmoil of like, I need some decompression time. But I think just from an outsider looking in Augustine's case, I do feel like he probably just needs a little extra mama time right now.
And even Zach says that, like, he's always been Team Zach. Team Zach. Zachy this, Zachy that. Zachy, who's mom? Zachy. Lately, it's been, Mama, play with me. Mama this, Mama that. And I'm so used to just being, I'm doing everything else. I'm terrible at imaginary play.
Oh, me too.
It's so
the
bad.
The worst.
And it's like painful.
Me too.
For me.
Oh gosh.
I will do anything to get out of it. And he wants to play with these little action figures and and I'm like, this is terrible.
Yeah, I can't do it either.
And literally the other night, Zach said, Regan, come see. And so we go in the room and he says, he has asked you specifically to sit down on the carpet with him and play with him at least 5 times. And you keep saying, wait, I need to do this. I need to do that. He says, go sit with him. Like, he is literally begging you to have some one-on-one time. And it's like, it kind of like goes over your head at some point whenever,
it does, because we have like a very heavy mental task list of things that as moms we have to make sure get done. And but
balancing everybody's lives,
but then at the same time you do have to sometimes say, okay, this laundry can wait, these dishes can wait, this is not. And one of the
my house doesn't have to be perfectly spotless before I go to bed.
Exactly. One of the
it does, but
You'll get past it. I promise.
I don't know if I will.
One of the things that I don't know where I heard it at this point, but I think about it all the time. And it was, we're all juggling many balls at one time, keeping them all in the air. But the key is to recognize and realize which of those balls that you're keeping it afloat, basically, are plastic. And when you drop them, they're going to bounce and they'll be fine and you can pick them back up. and which ones are glass. And if you
I
drop
love
them,
that.
they're going to break. And you have to keep them up
I love
in the
that.
air.
I've never heard that before.
So I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if I say no to this, what's really going to be the consequence? Is this like a life or death glass ball? Probably not, you know?
Yeah.
And it helps me. I'm very visual, but it helps me sometimes to like stop and keep things in perspective a little bit, you know?
Perspective is a big one. We can talk a lot about that.
But playing with your kid and again, hindsight's 2020. It's so much easier to look back. But my kids now getting older, and I look at photos when they were younger, and it's very bittersweet because it's fun to see like what little people they're becoming.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wish I could go back and tell myself to go sit on the carpet and spend more time with them.
Right. But I think it's important as we like talk about this, because this could give a lot of us a lot of anxiety thinking about all the things we could do different. Every time I pray specifically for Augustin, I ask the Lord to fill in the gaps and the places in his life and in his heart, emotionally, physically, that I, for whatever reason, cannot give.
A good prayer.
Whether it's like my own brokenness, my woundedness, my selfishness, all my sinful things that are directly impacting Augustin, I just ask him to fill in those spaces, because reality is that they're gonna happen. They happen to us. We're gonna happen. We're gonna hurt our kids in some ways, and so there's not much we can do about it other than like move forward and literally ask the Lord to fill in those gaps and to give them graces, to give us graces, to make us more aware of them in the moment. You know, I found myself asking the Lord, show me, make me aware of the times of that Augustin needs me, or make me aware of, or teach me how to love him in the way that he receives love. You know, like just asking the Lord and not trying to figure it out all by myself, you know?
Yeah, I like that.
But also the scapegoat, just being like, Lord, you handle it. Like you fill in all the gaps, because there's gonna be some.
It's so good.
You're looking at me with one eye.
Well, because my brother told me that today. He was like, "What are you doing?"
Like,
I said, "I'm thinking," and he was like, "One eye is closed." I was like, "I don't know. That's my lazy eye default. When I'm like really concentrating, I must squint."
And like praying to our intercessors and the people that go before us. We talked about All Saints Day yesterday, and we did have a question about. It just came to my mind of if there's any specific prayers to pray on All Saints Day, or to people that are not named saints. And I don't think there's not a specific prayer, but as simple, like the prayer could be as simple as, hey Dad in heaven, my dad's not dead. But if someone's passed away that you're close to, hey, please intercede for us, pray for me as being a parent, and help me. You know, you can pray all of those prayers that you would pray to Jesus to anybody else.
Yeah. So. And I do think just an important caveat, because you said we could give people anxiety, and I don't want to do that. While there are absolutely times where it's important to go and sit and play with your kid on the floor, there are also times where it is important for them to learn how to entertain themselves.
And a boundary.
Need
a boundary,
like external input to make decisions or be entertained or whatever. Like you need to go figure out how to
live your life without
because there is a point where I gotta cook you food. You know?
Yeah. No, it's very true. Or like whenever you and your spouse is trying to have some moments, it's okay that the kids come second. It's actually
they have to.
You know, like and that's okay if they're not there. And there's not a playbook here.
No,
it's just
we're just all lost in figuring it out. And you know, my aunt always told me you don't really become an adult until your parents disappoint you. And I never understood that until it happened. And when you realize, it's like that realization of, you know, my dad is a superhero who has the answer to every question and is going to make everything okay, to, whoa, he is a human just like me.
Yeah.
They were figuring it out just like I am. They had no more information. They probably had less information with no Googling, and, you know, like, we're all just trying to make it.
I think too, like, you don't really understand how much your parents do for you or have done for you, how much they love you and sacrifice for you. Like, you have no concept of that until you do it yourself.
Yeah.
There's no way you would, but it's amazing how much appreciation and love you feel for your parents after you are one, because it's like, it's just incredible, like, the gift that it is. But just to close, I've been hearing a lot of people talk about this. It's probably the Holy Spirit. It's probably because it's coming from all the different directions. But what I am pledging to myself and what I've been trying to work on is saying you're sorry to your kids. Like, when you do something that you shouldn't have, whenever you apologizing to them, whenever you raise your voice or you got a little out of hand, even if it's the slightest, our slightest mishap to them is, like, sometimes really powerful. And so to sit them down and verbally apologize with the action that you're apologizing for and saying, I'm sorry, do you forgive me? Because it's important for them to know that us as adults can do that and are able to do that. And it ultimately teaches them how to ask for forgiveness and not be so hard on themselves. And I feel like that's something that I don't really do often. Like, I get stuck in my head of thinking about all the things that I could have done better, or how I crossed the line or got a little too loud. But I don't ever, like, I don't do a good job of going to Augustine and saying, Augustine, I'm so sorry. I should not have raised my voice. Not even with one thing I hate the most is but forgiveness. Like,
oh yeah, sorry, but
no, I'm sorry I raised my voice. I should not have raised my voice in that tone to you.
You know, my therapist always says too that it's important for your kids to see you disagree in a healthy way, but it's equally as important for them to see you reconcile and figure it out and work it out and apologize, and what that looks like. So, you know, I feel like there are some people who would say your kid should never see you fight, and I think that that's an extreme that's very unrealistic, but also unhealthy, because they have to know that conflict exists,
right?
But how to do it in a healthy way, but also how to come out of it in a healthy way. And I think that that's a big part of it too, is post-conflict being humble enough and to go to the other person and apologize. Yeah. That is a life skill.
And a very hard one that people don't do well.
And you know what? If you're teaching your child that at an early age, think about how much healthier of an adult and of a husband and of a father he's going to make
everywhere. Yeah.
When he can say, you know what? I messed up and I'm sorry for that. Whoa.
Yeah, because
big.
That is big.
Yeah.
Man,
especially for a man.
St. Augustine, pray for us. We got some good topics today.
Yeah, this was not planned.
No, it wasn't planned.
We had a totally different topic for today, per usual.
Typically.
But
we thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Stay tuned for next week. Let us know what you think.
And also, find us on Instagram. We're on Facebook. But we are going to try and keep almost always a question box on our Instagram stories. But if you ever have a question, and it can be personal, it can be spiritual, it can be random, it doesn't matter. We want to hear it because it'll give us something to talk about. But you can send it to us on any of those platforms, our email, our Facebook, our Instagram, because we would love to answer questions.
Yep. Next time. Thank y'all. Bye.
Peace out.